because my hair right now is like, that was, wow. Some of you asked me how my color grading workflow looks like and how I color grade with LUTs. So this is exactly what this video is all about. FYI, I'm using the Davinci Resolve 18 Studio version just because I'm filming on a Sony A7IV and this particular camera records on H.265. And so you got the difference between the free version from Davinci and the studio version you pay for. The free version has its problems with H.265. It's very jitterish. But with that being said, the free version, and this whole channel is about filmmaking on a budget, is pretty much 80% or let's say up to 90% of the studio version. And today I'm going to color grade with all the tools you also have in the free version. So if I'm using something that's not in the free version, please let me know in the comments and I'm going to work out a workaround. So what you see here is the color grading page, and right now I'm going to open everything you need while color grading your footage. Oh yeah, by the way, if you haven't seen my short spec ad, I prepared a bunch of shots to create a cliche, your hometown upcoming pro athlete kind of spec ad shots. I already edited the sequence and color graded a few shots of it just to make this tutorial a little bit quicker. I think it's pretty important to explain a little bit about Davinci Resolve if you're not using it. Top left you have your gallery and your LUTs. So if you want to use, let's say, film LUT, today we're going to use the 2383 Kodak film print LUT. That's a mouthful. That's all the way up to the left. You see you have the RE LUTs, you have the DJI and the film looks. Problem with the film looks from Davinci Resolve, they are working as Rec. 709. So that's why I downloaded a free LUT from Pierrelee. I link his channel down in the description, as well as the video where you can find the link to download the same LUTs. The difference between those LUTs is that they're working in the Davinci wide gamut color space. What that means is Rec. 709 is a pretty damn tiny color space. Using, let me show you, the Davinci color space. Here you see the little tiny triangle. This is Rec. 709 and this is just everything Rec. 709 is working with. And this huge triangle, the biggest one, and this is the Davinci wide gamut. You're working in a pretty damn huge color space. That's important to avoid all this bending and nuclear looking kind of color, but there's probably way too much for this video. We get into it in another one. Next up to the LUTs and the gallery, you see your little display, the footage that you're working with. Then there are the note section. Here you see a few more notes. And here you have your effects. Effects like film grain, see film damage, etc., halation. And then underneath it you see all your clips that you're working with. And underneath this, you also have your timeline. And underneath your timeline there's your color working space. So to the left you see your color wheels, the primaries. Lift, this is your shadows, gamma your midtones, and gain is your highlight, and offset is the whole picture. So this is what you use when you want to white balance your footage. Next to it there are a few more tools, sharpening tools, power windows, you have situation tools, and your curve. If you're a photographer and you're using Lightrooms, this is pretty much the same. And next to it you have different waveforms. So I'm gonna make it much taller. Here you have your parades, so the red, green, and blue channel, the waveforms, yeah, histogram, and the vector scope. The vector scope is good for see a qualifier. See it? This is good to control your skin tones. So the vector scope is pretty much an indicator to see if your skin tones are still on point. See the thin line here? This is your skin color. It doesn't matter if it's a dark skin or light skin. This is an indicator for each skin. This is pretty much everything you need to know for today. And like I said, this channel is all about budget filmmaking. So this laptop I'm color grading with is an old MacBook. It's neither an M1 or M2 MacBook Pro. It is a 16-inch 2019 MacBook. And like I say, it's an Intel Core i7, so it's the base model. That's everything you need to know right now. Let's get into the color workflow. First of all, I like to use the lightbox. Top right, click it, then you see all your footage that you have in your timeline. We have a wide shot, we have a medium shot, and we have close-ups. Now what you can do is you can select your footage that is similar to each other. And now I'm going to show you how you group up those shots. So here I selected the white bed shot and I select every clip that belongs to it. Then I'm going ahead and right click it, add into a new group. So let's call it establishing shot. So now we have this group up. You can see it. Get it back. So all the white shots now are linked together. You see this with the chains symbol. So let's get rid of the effects and the LUTs. So we see our footage and we have a lot of room for our nodes that we're using. And we also get rid of the timeline. I keep the clips right now just to show you what everything means. So you see these sections on top of here. So you have the group pre-clip, you have clip, you have group post-clip, and you have the timeline. So selected means if you choose the group pre-clip, everything you do in this section affects all the shots that are linked to each other. So you see, let's add a few nodes, 3 nodes. Now we can go into this clip and this clip. You see, they're all the same. So just to show you, just to prove it to you, see, now there are 4. All clips have the same nodes. So let's get rid of one, doesn't matter. And the next section is clip. Clip means you working just on this specific clip that you selected. So if I add a few nodes here, you see they are not linked to the group. They're just specifically for this one clip. Post clip, group post clip affects all the clips. But sometimes it's great to have the options to use the pre and the post clip group just to give it a certain look in post, in the post group. But right now, let's select the pre-clip and start color grading. Rid of the clips, because now you know we're working on the white shot. You see here, this is the log footage. So it's a pretty flat image and we want to convert it into a Rec 709 picture. So we bring the colors to life. And now we gotta open the effect section, choose color space, transform, the first node and your last node, drag and drop. So what you want to do with your color space input, you want to label it as it. So CST color space transform input, and the last node, this is our color space transform output. Input is what you are recording on. The Sony S-log3. This is what the A7IV is recording on. Input is s-log3. Then you output it to Davinci, wide gamut, and Davinci intermediate. So every node that comes after the first node, the color space transform input, is now working in the Davinci wide gamut color space. And in the last one, we select the input as Davinci wide gamut, input Davinci intermediate. This is the working space. And we want to output it in Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. Okay, that's it with the effects. Close this, and now we put this all the way to the end because we need these now. And as you see, the picture, it is pretty, the white is pretty yellowish, greenish. That's because the curtains, they are yellowish, orangish, pretty warm, and the bed sheets and the plants are green, so this is mixing up. This will be our white balance, and I like to do the exposure in the same node. So to white balance everything, we go to our offset wheel. Down here to the left, we add a little bit of blue and go down. We overdo it. Go down to the cyan, go back a little bit. After, before. I think it's still a little bit bluish. Right. Okay, so before, after. Yeah. Before, after, before, and after. Yeah, so we got here. Just to check it, see the vector scope, choose your qualifier. Yep, the skin tone line is right in the middle. And next up will be our nodes. We add a node, a parallel node, and one more. So 3 parallel nodes. Just to understand the nodes, I think it's pretty easy. If you imagine the nodes as a funnel. So every node is working with the input that comes from the node before. The first one works with the input of the camera. It gets the most amount of information. Let's say like this. And then the next one, it gets less and less information. So that's why I like to do parallel nodes. They all 3 use the informations from the node before. The first parallel node is the primary node. The next one will be our curve node. And the last one, I like to use it for my exposure, for my saturation. Primaries here, and we select our parade, this one. So I think it's huge enough, right? So you can see it here. And we gonna lift our gain a little bit because it's already pretty high. We just do it a little bit, and we go down with our shadows. Bring the lift up. Okay, so we stretch in the picture. And before I go into the curves and the saturation, I like to add a few more nodes. And for this node, we're going to use the 2383 Kodak film print LUT. You have the D55, you have the D60, and you have the D65 Kodak. What that means is just 65 is the cool version, then the 60 is the neutral version, and 55 is always the warm version of it. So we go with the warm version, drag and drop it into this node. I use the warm look just because it's more vintage and it gives us this nostalgic kind of look. So the LUTs in Davinci, they look the same. They just working in a Rec 709 color space. So everything that's following this node will be coloring in whatever your display is showing you. I like to work in Davinci wide gamut, and that's why I'm going with the other LUT curves. So because the Kodak is pretty contrasty, I sometimes go along and like to raise the shadows again just a little bit, raise the midtones and lower the highlights. This, right? So this is before and this is after. Before and after. In our saturation, I raise the saturation all the way, go back until I say okay, I like that. It's around 70-ish. As you see, the window, it looks pretty blown out, but if I go ahead and lower, then you see all the information is still there. It's just nostalgically, yeah, windows are almost always blown out, but still I'm gonna lower it a little bit just so you see the curtains and raise the midtones again. And even the shadows. Get them back out of the... Alright, so here you see this one, they all look the same. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I want to change a little bit more about these two in the group. So select the first white clip, and here we in the clip. What I want to do here is I add another parallel node, and I'm going to use power windows. So first thing I want to do is give it a nice vignetting, because we have so much highlight around, so much light in the shadows. It's just because I forgot to darken the ceiling, but this is something you can get away with in post. Not always, of course. Okay, so now we have a power window and we're feathering it out a lot. So then I'm going to show you what's affected. Shift and H, you see that everything that's gray will not be affected. So I can go a little bit. And because I wanted to do a vignetting first, I invert this power window. So now you see me as the subject in this clip is not affected, and I go ahead and I lower the offset wheel also slightly. I'll show you. So before and after, and we gonna use another power window as we did before. Just make it a little bit smaller, and we're feathering it out because I want to highlight myself. Do the exact opposite of what we did before. You know, lift everything. And you see the before and after. Before and after. It's just so slightly, but it makes a lot for our final shot. Now we go ahead and choose gallery. We right click it, grab a still, then we choose the other one that's similar to the clip, and we go ahead and we drag and drop it. So now these two are having the same kind of vignetting. We are pretty much done with color grading. So here's the color correction and the color grading. This is what happens in here. You know, this is some sort of an overlay. And now we go ahead and we make it our own footage. What I like to do sometimes is shift the footage towards more ARRI looking like highlights. So if you look at a movie like, I say, Sicario, this is filmed on an ARRI Alexa, and the highlights, they tend to be a little bit more yellow greenish. So that's what we do with the footage. The look, we name it look. We go ahead and we choose the highlights to a little bit more to the green, yellow, a little bit to the green. Now we bring up the gamma maxer to save the skin tone. Then we go into the shadows, do a little bit of the same. Yellow, greenish. See, so this is the before, this is the after, before and after. So we're not done yet. Maybe a little bit too much. Back again. Yep. And now we're gonna save our skin tone. Add another parallel. I know that's not the proper way to do it, but it is what it is. Now we go into our curves. We choose hue versus saturation. Now you go ahead and click with your qualifier, and you see here the part that is selected. And you go ahead. If you go up, you give it much more red. And now we go back and we take out a little bit more of the yellow orange. Check our vector scope, check the skin tone. We gotta choose a part that looks like skin. So here you see this is a part that's in light, so this is pretty much on point. The line is in the middle. So if you go ahead here in the shadow, you will see that everything is a little bit leans a little bit more to the orange yellow, but that's pretty normal. As long as the bright part is in the middle, it looks okay. But you also wanted to know how to use LUTs. What if you have a Rec 7 or 9 LUT? Then this looks a little bit different. So get rid of the LUT. And you go ahead and select the effects again. So you want to work with the Davinci LUT, it's not a problem. Then you're gonna get into the CST out and you change the gamma 2.4 into a cinefilm log, because that's what the LUTs from Davinci are working in. And then you add another node afterwards. Go ahead, select the LUTs, the film look, and then you have the Kodak 2383 55 in here. Oops, drag and drop it. And as you see, it's just looking the same. Let's go back to what we had before. Now, what's missing is the grain. We select our effects. We type in film grain, there it is, drag and drop it into it. And I like to go with 35mm 400T. Grain centers maybe a little bit bigger, just ever so slightly, so you see it. Make it bigger. So this is before, this is after. Before and after. Right, and that's pretty much what I use to color grade. There's no tree, the pre-clip, the clip work. I rarely use the post-clip, just because I'm not using a lot of halation right now. This is a little bit difficult for this laptop, but if I'm working on a different station, of course I'm going to use the post-clip group post-clip section. Well, so this is how I actually start all my color gradings, and it always depends on the project. So now I use the Kodak 2383. Sometimes it's just you need more color, so I do everything my own and don't use a LUT. I don't like to use LUTs just because LUTs from YouTubers are always filmed in a particular color temperature and on a particular time of the day. So maybe it was overcast. They like to raise the reds or the greens or something. And while it looked good in their footage doesn't mean that it's gonna look good in your footage. It always requires a lot of tweaking, and if you have a Rec. 709 LUT, it gets pretty tough to correct it. So go ahead, learn a little bit about color grading. You will be able to work pretty quick on your footage, and if you want to go with something that you don't have to work with a lot, and you have a Sony, just film in S-Cinetone and you're pretty much good to go. There's a little bit more contrast or raise the saturation and you're good to go. So with that being said, I hope this video was helpful, and I'm gonna see you in the next video, because my hair right now is like, that was, wow. Color grading videos, hell of a work. See you in the next one. Peace.